What's up, everyone? Welcome into Dodgerheads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. I'm joined by Daniel Starkind, and tough one for the Dodgers tonight. They fall 5-2 to the Colorado Rockies. They break a big winning streak that they were in the midst of, although I think things are going all right for the Dodgers, all things considered. But we'll get into this one in just a moment. It was a big night for Tony Gonzalon. He pitched well, but the Dodger bats just couldn't get going. The middle of the order really struggled. The bullpen couldn't get it done. And then they just couldn't get it back late. So we appreciate you joining us as always. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Periscope, if you're on YouTube, wherever you are at, please leave us comments. Let us know what your biggest takeaway is from tonight's game. Is it Gonzalon's performance? Is it the bats struggling? Is it the bullpen for the second night in a row having a rough one? So, Daniel, I'll just go straight to you. The Dodgers lose 5-2. Your biggest takeaway, your biggest observation from this game was what?
Well, I'll start with the positive, and it was definitely Tony Gonzalon. He looked great tonight. His splitter was working. 8 punch outs. I think that ties a career high. He had that a few starts ago. They made the decision to trade Stripling away at the deadline to open a spot in the rotation for this guy, and so far he's making the most of it. You know, he's been awesome all season. I'm not going to lie, I was a little disappointed to see him pulled after the 6th. He was only at 75 pitches. I thought he had, at least one more and maybe even 2 at the rate he was going. He was cruising at that point. So I was a little surprised and a little disappointed. But, Victor Gonzalez came out looking good. And then, Treinen and Wood couldn't hold him down. But, this team isn't going to win every game. They're what's their record? 30-11.
Yeah.
They got, they're about to clinch the division any day now, it feels like. So I'm not going to get too hung up on this one.
Yeah, to your point, it was interesting because Gonzalon gets through 6. He allows just 3 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts. He gives up 2 runs. One of them is unearned, although that feels a little misleading because the error on Betts, he's probably just fortunate that Betts catches that ball, let alone what happens next. But it was interesting because even in the 6th inning itself, it felt like there was doubts about whether Gonzalon was going to even finish the 6th. So, you talked about could he get to the 7th. The Dodgers almost didn't even let him get through the 6th. But as you said, ties a career high with 8 strikeouts, which is big. Someone pointed out on Twitter as well, he got 17 swings and misses, which is a career high. And for me, every time I watch Gonzalon, I'll say I'm surprised. The way that people talk about him, the way that he's treated compared to a guy like Dustin May, you would think he's sort of like an Alex Wood type, like a pitchability guy that doesn't have a lot of projection, that's hanging in the low 90s and just kind of piecing it together. And then you watch him pitch and it's like, oh, wait, this guy touches 97. He's consistently at 95 with his fastball. That split change is absolutely filthy. The slider is starting to look better and better. So, the idea that Gonzalon is anything less than a really good Major League Baseball player at this point. Now, the scouting reports are going to come out on him. But the guy has a .76 ERA. He got through 6 innings and 75 pitches for a Dodgers team that doesn't tend to get a lot of depth from starting pitchers outside of Kershaw. And so I'm with you. It's tough to lose, and there's plenty to have questions about. But it does feel like Gonzalon's got to be the best story of the night and the most important story, as this guy just continues to prove how good he is. And honestly, we talk a lot about a guy like Dustin May. I don't know if you could really argue a whole lot with it. Gonzalon's actually better than him right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you mentioned, as far as the stuff goes, Gonzalon's not a guy who you usually think, has eye-popping stuff, off-the-chart type stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you think about a Dustin May or a Walker Buehler. But what he was displaying tonight, he was sitting 96, 97 with his fastball with that absolutely disgusting split change. So that's wipeout stuff as far as I'm concerned. He struck out 8, probably could have struck out more if he wanted to, but he's kind of a guy that pitches to contact, and that's why he was able to be so efficient, only 75 pitches in 6 innings. So I think a lot like we talked about with Dustin May, he's going to continue to get better and better with each start, and I'm just happy that they finally gave him that, full spot in the rotation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, Alex Wood comes in at the end of the game and still looks a little bit rough. I mean, his box score line will look okay because all the runs end up getting credited to Trinan, but Wood, Trinan deserves most of the blame here, but Alex Wood didn't necessarily do himself any favors at the same time. So something to watch there. But I mean, this is a constant conversation. Is Tony Gonzalon the third best starter on the Dodgers right now for your money?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the results. What'd you say? He's got a .75 ERA.
Yeah.
0.76 ERA, and it's not like it's just 2 or 3 starts now. He's up to, I don't know, is it 5 starts?
5 starts,
at this point?
yeah.
So he's been pitching really well. If he continues this, I don't see how you could leave him out of the postseason rotation, especially when you consider Urias especially has more
relief experience.
More experience as a reliever. So that's also something you consider, because if you got May and Gonzalon in the rotation, yeah, Julio's not there, but he's also been arguably one of the team's best relievers the last couple of postseasons. So that's another weapon that you would be adding to that bullpen as well.
Absolutely. So the positives for the Dodger, I think, kind of begin and end with Tony Gonzalon. Unfortunately, as we say, Victor Gonzalez, my guy. I know, I was so afraid. He came in and I was like, first of all, we historically don't have good luck on nights in which you and I are recording live. And then Gonzalez comes in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to ruin this guy. I am absolutely going to ruin this guy. But he looks great. Yes, we'll get to him when we talk about the bullpen. Absolutely. So to be fair, Victor Gonzalez, definitely a positive. So if you're just joining us, a quick recap on the game. The Rockies jump out to an early lead, 1-0 in the second. They had a runner on second. Charlie Blackmon is on second. Mookie Betts on a fly ball from Kevin Pillar, who doesn't seem like he's a very good baseball player, but always seems to play well against the Dodgers. He hits a deep fly ball to right field. Mookie Betts makes an amazing catch, leaping at the wall. Not to rob a home run, but definitely to rob an extra base hit. Unfortunately, as he's transferring the ball from his glove to his hand, he bobbles it. As a result, Blackmon tags from second and scores all the way to put the Rockies up 1-0. In the fourth, it's Blackmon again. He gets out in front of a fastball, pulls it down the right field line. Rockies are up 2-0. Dodgers come back in the bottom of the fifth. Mookie Betts with an RBI single. Corey Seager with a double to score Mookie Betts. I believe both those were with 2 out. So you're starting to feel like, okay, it's 2-2. The Rockies bullpen's a mess. You really feel like this thing is going to head in the right direction, but the Dodgers just can't get it done. The Rockies come back in the ninth. 3 straight singles off of Blake Trinan. Alex Wood comes in, and by the end of it, the Rockies are up 5-2, and that's all for the Dodgers. I think there's a couple pieces that are worth talking about here, and the biggest one is the offense. Now, we have enough of a sample size, even though it doesn't feel that big. We have enough of a sample size to where we don't have to really stress out about one game here or there. But tonight, it was not pretty for the middle of the order. Muncy, Bellinger, Peterson, and Pollock, 1 for 15 with 1 walk. And to be fair, that one was with 1 out in the ninth inning. If we're going to be fair on that side, let's go fair on the other side. Cody Bellinger should have had a home run that was robbed. Unbelievable catch at the wall. But at the end of the day, those guys are 1 for 15. Jock Peterson is 1 for his last 20. That group just uninspired tonight. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Peterson couldn't get the ball off the ground. It just didn't look good for the guys that they had stacked in the middle of the order there.
Yeah. I don't want to say I'm concerned, because obviously, I'm not. They're 30-11, and their offense has arguably been one of the best in baseball this season. But we're getting to the point where it's not just slow starts anymore, right? It's been the season's over a month old, and we still have guys not swinging the bat the way they're capable of, which it's honestly pretty insane how this offense has performed with so many guys underperforming to what we've seen from them in the past. But it is starting to get a little bit concerning with guys like Jock, and Cody started to break out, but he hasn't fully broken out. Same with Muncy. So it is a little concerning, but at the end of the day, we've seen what they do, and what they do is they wear down starting pitchers, get their pitch count up early. So even if they're not getting hits, they're working counts and getting their pitch count up early. And then they've just feasted off bullpens this season. They lead the league by a mile in runs in the 7th inning or later. So eventually it's going to catch up to teams. Obviously, it didn't tonight. The Rockies were able to shut it down in the later innings, but we saw just last night we saw what they were capable of. So, like I said, it's a little concerning, but I'm not ready to jump off a bridge or anything
Yeah,
here.
that's good to hear.
And for all we know, they'll come back tomorrow and score 10 runs. So, but I will say, for some reason, they seem to struggle against the pitchers that have the highest ERAs in the league.
Yeah.
Like Marquez has been getting absolutely shoved or shelled lately, I should say. He's given up like 16 runs in his last 3 outings. So go figure, he comes into Dodger Stadium tonight and turns in a solid outing.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, these guys struggling. Muncy is still hitting 200. Bellinger 220, Jock Peterson 184, Pollock's at 269, so he's kind of the outlier, a guy that, and he was 1 for 4, so maybe Pollock doesn't deserve to be grouped in with the rest of those guys, although he did have 2 strikeouts tonight. But I mean, the thing with Bellinger, his on-base percentage is 301, Jock Peterson's 286, Jock Peterson's slugging percentage is 398, so it's kind of one of those things where even with the batting average, none of the other stuff is coming. It's not like Jock Peterson is hitting 184, but hitting a bunch of home runs. It's not like Bellinger. I mean, Bellinger's slugging percentage is 456, which isn't terrible, but I mean, these numbers aren't good. Even AJ Pollock, I mean, on base percentage of 309. He's hitting 269, but 309 on base percentage is absolutely pitiful. Gavin Lux is obviously small sample size, 269 on base. Edwin Rios, 238 on base. So to your point, it's amazing that the Dodgers record is what it is considering all these things. And at some point, you stop saying small sample size. I mean, we're a quarter of the way into it, more than a quarter of the way into a normal baseball season, and guys like Muncy can't still be hitting 200. And so, again, I don't want to make too much out of it. The Dodgers still have a few weeks to try and figure this out. And as long as these guys get going, which, again, we have every reason to believe Bellinger will get it figured out, Muncy will get it figured out. And the storyline's different tonight, right? If Cody Bellinger's ball goes out and the Dodgers somehow win this game. But that is a little concerning. I will say Muncy had 2 hard hit balls tonight. Bellinger had 1. Peterson had 2. Pollock had 1. Now, Peterson, for example, everything's on the ground. So you could hit it 110 miles an hour, but if you're hitting it into the dirt, who cares? So Jock, like I said, 1 for his last 20. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do. It seems like they're trying to get some of these guys, a guy like Jock, a guy like Lux, obviously, some at-bats to try and get them going. It feels like Taylor is pretty clearly a better option than Jock Peterson at this point. Pollock as well, obviously, who played tonight. But maybe they're just trying to get these guys going. I mean, is that sort of the approach that you would be taking, is just give Jock at bats, let him work his stuff out because you know you're going to need him come postseason time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're not playing for a whole lot right now. This team has all but clinched a postseason berth at this point. They're going to have the best record in the NL, so yeah. There's no reason to make drastic changes or anything. You're going to keep giving guys at bats, hoping that they find whatever they're searching for. And we've seen with a lot of these guys, they could all break out at any time. So I think it's just kind of wait and see mode. I think the one guy to actually kind of be most concerned about is Gavin Lux.
Yeah.
He got called up, a week ago now, and he's hitting. What's he hitting? He's hitting 174. His on-base percentage is 269, which is even higher than his slugging percentage. So we're seeing kind of what we saw from him in summer camp when we said he didn't look quite right. There was an at-bat in the 9th inning tonight. He just took a 96-mile-an-hour fastball right down the middle and then swung through another one at 98 and wasn't particularly close. So he hasn't looked like the guy that we all thought he would be to this point, and there's not a whole lot of time left for him. There's 2-3 weeks left here. So at this rate, I honestly don't think he would make the postseason roster. So he's kind of in do or die mode right now. If he wants to make that roster, these are essentially playoff games for him.
Yeah. And I mean, what's fascinating about all the numbers you just pointed out, this is a guy that's 2 for 6 with 2 walks in his last 2 games. So as bad as those numbers are, you can imagine what they were before a couple nights where, I mean, he had the double tonight. He did get a walk, but to your point, it's not a consistency of at bat to at bat. Right. Yesterday, even his hit yesterday, it was sort of a seeing eye ground ball that, you feel good for him that he gets it, but it's not necessarily something that feels like he turns it on. He feels like a guy who needs like a 3 for 3 kind of night just to believe. I mean, you see it. It's just, does he believe that he has it? So obviously the Dodger offense couldn't get it done. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk about the Dodger bullpen. This is a group that has been an absolute strength for the Dodgers throughout the entire season so far. Again, just like the hitting, it's not something to overreact to in a couple of days, but it is back-to-back days against the Rockies, albeit at home, not in Coors Field, in which the bullpen takes the loss. Last night, they give up 4 earned runs. Tonight, the bullpen gives up 3 earned runs. Victor Gonzalez sort of gets his own separate category, 1 2/3 with 3 strikeouts. Treinen comes in, he gets the last out of the 8th inning, and then gets brought back out to the 9th. So before we dive into Treinen, let me ask about this, and this is something that sort of bothers me, but it feels like something the Dodgers don't care about. I'm always a bit weirded out when they bring a guy in to finish 1 inning and then have to make him sit through and then bring him out to pitch the next. A guy like Treinen, who's historically a closer, most recently, or at very least a relief pitcher. I mean, relief pitchers cannot possibly be used to pitching, sitting out while the team is hitting, and then coming back. And yet it feels like something the Dodgers don't mind. Now, I get if you can get a guy like Treinen to get 1 out in the 8th inning, then the 9th, there's no 3-batter rule anymore. Well, guess what? They let him face 3 batters anyway. So clearly that wasn't an issue for them. I mean, before we get into the mechanics of Treinen and how he looked, am I looking too far into that, or do you see something there too where it's like I don't understand? I mean, Gonzalez was great. Now I get they bring in Kemp to pinch hit and Treinen gets Kemp, so it's hard to argue there. But it just felt like they do some of this unnecessary maneuvering where it puts guys in spots that aren't perfect.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I get that they're looking for the matchups. They want the righty on righty, but like you just mentioned with Gonzalez, he had retired 5. He came in, retired 5 straight guys, struck out 3 of them. Yeah. He looked great as far as I'm concerned. So, and he's also a guy who's gotten both lefties and righties out. He's not a straight lefty specialist. So with 2 outs and no one on base, I don't mind letting him face Kemp there. And then if he gets that out, you bring in Treinen for a clean inning in the 9th, or if Kemp gets on base, then you could bring in Treinen there to get out of it. But I think there definitely is something to that with relievers. They're not used to a whole lot of throwing, then sitting, then throwing. They usually get their throwing done, pitch their inning, and then they're done for the night. Yeah. So, and we've seen in the past Dodgers relievers kind of struggle with that as well. Going back to Game 5 of the NLDS last year, I remember Joe Kelly pitched a great inning. I think he was like 9 or 10 pitches, and then they brought him out for the next one, and he couldn't get an out. So I think you kind of maybe don't want to press your luck so much, especially when you have so many great arms in the bullpen. Then maybe Treinen comes in and gets out Kemp, and then you're on to the next arm. They got plenty of guys down there that could use some work. I'm sure Alex would have rather pitched a clean inning than coming in with 2 on and no outs. Yeah. And he didn't look horrible tonight. He gave up the 1 double, but I mean, he came in with 2 guys on, and he's typically a starter. That's not something he's used to. So I get that they're trying to experiment right now and trying to find what works, but I also don't think you need to overcomplicate things too much.
Yeah, so Treinen comes back out for the 9th, and he gives up 3 straight singles, all of which, and they talked on the broadcast, they're all opposite field. Well, guess what? All 3 of them were over 100 miles an hour on the exit velocity. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a little easier because Treinen's throwing about 100, so it's not too hard to get that exit velocity up. But all of those pitches, or all of those hits, when you look at exit velocity, you look at angle, all that kind of thing, they are likely hits. So it's not like you could blame this entirely on bad luck. He gives up 3 straight singles. They bring in Alex Wood, which, again, I mean, like, I get you're experimenting, but it's a tie game in the 9th inning with guys on base. I didn't understand Wood. I mean, it's not like they had Jansen warming or, whoever, fill in the blank, whoever you like. And I get Gratterall and Ferguson, maybe the next couple guys that you like there, non-save situation. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Wood was the guy warming. Like, it was going to be Treinen, and then it was going to be Wood. They didn't have a backup option. Floro, I mean, where's Floro in that spot? There's lots of guys that I'm looking for. It feels weird to bring in Wood, to your point. He gives up just the 1 hit, although it's a big one. It's a 2-run double down the line. And it was a guy that basically barely missed the 2-run double by about 6 inches on the pitch right before it. So then he comes back and he gets a couple outs. He gets credited for a walk. It was an intentional walk. He gets 2 strikeouts. And so, to your point, not all bad for Alex Wood, but just a bizarre sort of outing. And it's, again, I don't want to overreact. I try not to overreact, but we're doing a post-game show, so I'll ask the question. I mean, is there any point with some of these guys like Ferguson, like Gratterall last night, like Treinen tonight, where you start to wonder, Are we about to regress a little bit to the mean? I mean, have things been just a little bit too good with some of these guys, and are things heading in that direction, or is this just fluky baseball?
Yeah, I mean, look, so some regression to the mean was bound to happen, right? I know it's a short season, but a week ago when you looked at the Dodgers bullpen, pretty much all of them had ERAs in the ones or even the zeros, or
Yeah,
some of them, or at worst in the twos. So that's just, you can't expect that for a full season, right?
yeah,
They were bound to have a few
yeah,
blow up outings. As a reliever, if you have one bad outing, that could ruin your ERA, you know? So it was bound to happen. It's nothing to be concerned about. I think last night with Ferguson, he just made a bad pitch to Pilar and he hit it out.
yeah,
Trinan's been pitching really well as of late, and I also think they're kind of overusing him a little bit. Seems like he's in there every night or 2 out of every 3 nights. I don't know how necessary that is, but he's been good. He's been able to get out of a bunch of jams. Sometimes he'll let runners on, but then he gets out of it. So he was due for an outing like tonight, and ultimately he came in and got Kemp out, which that was, I'd say, his main job.
yeah.
You know, if his night's done there, then we're talking about, oh, Blake Trinan came in and was great again. So I'm not concerned about him. He's one of the top 3 relievers on this team as far as I'm concerned. And then the Alex Wood thing, I don't really know what they're doing with Alex Wood. They originally said he was coming back as a starter, but then we watched him pitch in that scrimmage game or whatever, and he got roughed up a little bit. And Gonsolin's been pitching well, so it was like, all right, we can't bring this guy back and just throw him in the rotation when all our other guys are dealing right now.
Yeah.
So they're trying the reliever thing with him. I've never trusted him as a reliever. They've tried that in the past. I remember in the postseason against the Red Sox, he came in and got hit around a little bit. So if Alex Wood has to get hit around for them to realize that he's not the guy out of the bullpen, and then he gets left off the postseason roster, that's A-okay with me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever trust him as a reliever, but there's plenty of regular season games left that are rather meaningless, so I don't mind getting him some innings. He's going to be a free agent again, so let him get, some innings on tapes for other teams to see this winter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and going back to Trine, in his last 4 outings, he got 4 1/3 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, just 2 strikeouts. So the strikeout numbers seem to be coming down a little bit. But he entered the game with a 1.04 ERA. And tonight that jumps all the way up to 2.55 thanks to 1/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 3 earned runs. So not ideal for Blake Trinan. And it seems funny how often they use him. I mean, I guess maybe that's what you get for signing a 1-year deal with the Dodgers. But
Yeah.
you can't run this guy into the ground before the postseason.
Brandon Morrow syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Which, hey, if they get the Brandon Morrow performance in the postseason, nobody's going to be complaining about that one. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, in the end, it's one game. It's the Rockies. This is a team that they're not necessarily competing with. Fluky things happen. I mean, I think in the big picture, these are the types of games that freak you out because you're like, hey, this could happen in game 1 of a 3-game series, and who knows what happens. And if it could happen against a crappy team like the Rockies, then who's to be saying it can happen against a slightly better team, whoever finishes as the 8th seed in the West, or in the National League. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, I think they had won 18 out of 21 coming into tonight, which is an absolutely absurd run of games. And even in that, you think, hey, that means they lost 3 times. So losses are going to happen. You just hope they're few and far between. They come back last night. They can't come back tonight. So looking forward from you, I mean, is there anything that you take from this game or beyond Gonzalon? I mean, I think we're both impressed with Gonzalon. He continues to perform. He's getting more swings and misses, tied a career high with 8 strikeouts. He was efficient. I mean, could have easily gone 7. Is there anything else that you take from this game, or the rest you kind of just wipe away and say it's a wash?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, Mookie had another great night. He was on base 3 times, drove in a run, made that catch in right field. Even though he had the bobble after, he still made the catch. So he probably saved a run by making that catch. And he was great on the base pass again. He had that slide into second on the double play ball where Arenado missed the base, and then he alertly not only noticed that he was safe, but also noticed that no one was at third base and took third base. Yeah. So he continues to be incredible. And then one more thing on the bullpen, I think it's important to remember that they're missing two of their rather important guys right now. Pedro Baez is out, Joe Kelly's out, so those are two guys you expect to be on the postseason roster, potentially pitching in high leverage innings. So once those guys come back, then everyone else kind of moves down a notch.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not going to Alex Wood in a one-run game in the ninth inning. But then also with the lineup, Justin Turner, it's kind of the same effect. He's your three hitter. So with once he gets back in there, everyone else also moves down. So they're not relied upon as much. So I think once this team gets healthy, they're still clicking on all cylinders, and the postseason can't get here soon enough, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, when you mentioned Mookie Betts' names, it reminded me of one of the most fascinating moments of the game. It's the seventh inning. Austin Barnes doubles. Marquez is really struggling for the Rockies. As you said, his numbers have not been great. Mookie Betts had reached base all three times coming in, and Bud Black comes out looking like he's going to take this guy out. Mm-hmm. Marquez is standing on the mound telling his manager, clearly, I want to stay in, I want to stay in, I want to stay in. I could not believe they left him in there. I mean, he had just given up a double to Barnes. At the time, it's a 2-2 game, so the Rockies have not taken the lead yet. It's 2-2. They leave him in to face Mookie Betts, of all people, who has reached base all three times. I was like watching the game, texting, like, what are they? I mean, just negligence as far as I was concerned. Of course, it works out, so nobody's going to talk about it. But, I mean, I can only imagine myself if Dave Roberts did something like that. Now, the Rockies bullpen is terrible, so that's probably part of it, more than probably, although they were good tonight. But I just couldn't believe it in a tie game for a team that needs to win, and you leave your starter out there, a guy who has been okay on the night. I mean, he had a lot of I think he allowed like 10 hard hit balls, so he probably got a little bit lucky. His exit velocity was higher than just about everybody other than Trinan on the Dodgers. But it worked out for him. So, but yes, to your point, Mookie Betts is amazing. I mean, when Corey Seager doubled into the gap, it's beautiful to have a guy that you're just like, yeah, he's scoring. It's not even going to be close on the play at the plate. So it's good there. And yeah, I mean, Gonzalin's the story. Victor Gonzalez continues to be a nice guy that at some point becomes a key player in the Dodger bullpen. Definitely feels like it's headed in that direction. So
Real quick, back to that Marquez thing that you were just talking about. Yeah. I was also shocked at that. And usually, the whole talking your manager into staying in the game, that usually only works for like veteran guys or aces. Like a Clayton Kershaw, I feel like he could. I mean, it doesn't usually happen with Dave Roberts because he usually is kind of robotic and just when he's set on taking his guys out, he's set on taking them out. But usually those are the kind of guys that you see that could talk a manager into staying in a game. Not a guy who gave up 10 earned runs 2 starts ago and 16 in his last 3 starts and has been getting rocked. But hey, credit to them. It worked out this time. I bet if they did that again, it probably wouldn't work out as well next time.
Yeah, I'll take my chances again. It worked out, but so be it. So, a tough one for the Dodgers tonight, a 5-2 loss to the Rockies. Snaps a little bit of a win streak the Dodgers had going, but the Dodgers remain 6 games up in the National League West as the Padres lost tonight. They remain the best team in baseball by a wide margin, no matter how you look at it. So it's not all bad news for the Dodgers, but we appreciate you joining us for the live post game tonight. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com. We'll have a game recap up there. Check out our YouTube channel, Dodger Blue 1958. We'll have post game press conferences and interviews, everything up there. And check us out next week when we come back for Dodger Heads and looking back on the week that was as well as to the week ahead. So we appreciate you joining us. This has been Dodger Heads Live presented by DodgerBlue.com, and we will see you next time.